Welcome to Full Speed Ahead. I'm Craig Fuller here at the Small Fleet Owner Operator Summit. Kendra Tucker and I are going to dive into what the experiences are right now in the trucking market and her experience as CEO of Truckstop. Kendra, it's been a couple of years since you have taken the role as CEO of Truckstop, obviously a storied name in the logistics industry, but you came in really when COVID was starting to peak and really accelerate. Now you're seeing the opposite side of the market. What is this experience like?
Yeah, I think one way to describe it would be it is certainly dynamic. I think many a day here it is exciting. Here's some reference points. About this time last year, I was looking at factored invoices. So we've got a factoring business here at Truckstop, and so I paid close attention to the rates on those invoices. And last year around this time, those invoices were about $1,700. And now they are lucky to be above $1,300. So they're somewhere in the, like $1,330-ish range or so. And so when you think about the dynamics that are impacting the change in those rates, a lot has taken place over the past 12 to 18 months. When I joined Truckstop, we were hitting historic highs of new carriers entering the industry. And it was all we could do to respond, to the demands and the needs of those new truckers in particular as they were setting up their businesses. And now it's a bit of the opposite. So now the conversations we're having with our customers around are around how can they be more profitable? What are some of the tactics, the tips and tricks that they're seeing for some of the veterans in the industry? How they can use our services to help them put together the most profitable loads or runs and hauls for them. So just the nature of the conversation is really materially different. It has been quite the ride.
When was the pivot moment when it became obvious for you guys and really obvious more for the carrier base that things had changed, that this was not a short-term, just really sort of short dip, sort of a temporary pause in an upcycle, but really a change in the dynamics of the industry? When was that obvious for you guys?
Yeah. Like you at Truckstop, we keep pretty close tabs on it. So it was something that we really started paying attention to in late Q1 last year, but I really started to see it in the numbers about May to June last year. And then where you saw it really become more sustained was in volumes and rate drops that happened in the fourth quarter. One of the other metrics that we keep close tabs on is what's happening in terms of new carrier authorities entering the industry alongside carrier authorities exiting the industry. And it was basically net zero for most of the summer. And then that turned net negative by the time we got into the fourth quarter and has been pretty consistent since then. So the amount of capacity that you see leaving the industry is something that we were paying attention to. And that is still on a net basis the case.
So, Kendra, is that accelerating? Are we seeing the numbers accelerate in terms of revocations, or is it flattening out, or what are you guys seeing right now at this point?
I would say, I need to go back and take a look at it for March. One of the things I was really curious was the number of new entrants actually ticked up in February. It's really interesting after several months of sustaining just lower numbers. I wouldn't say that they were back to normalized levels. They're still pretty consistently high. So that's one of the things that we see is, it used to be around 3,000 to 4,000 carriers that would enter the industry on a monthly basis. And it's still somewhere in the 5,000 to 6,000 range. So I would say it's hovering around there. It hasn't dropped more significantly, but yeah, pretty regularly in that 5,000 to 6,000 carriers, new carriers coming in on a monthly basis.
Now, in terms of 2019 was the last freight recession, significant. We had a downturn during the COVID cycle, but we're going to sort of look at that as an anomaly in the calendar. But when you think about 2019, it was described as a bloodbath. It was a pretty difficult time for a lot of carriers. In terms of what you're hearing carriers talk about or your brokerage customers, how did they relate this downturn to some of the ones that have happened in the past?
Yeah, they say, I'm sure you hear the same thing as well. Across the board, I hear our customers describe it as being a more painful downturn than previous. I wouldn't go so far as to say that we've seen a bloodbath, though. I think what we've observed is On the carrier side, businesses seem currently at least more prepared to weather the change, right? Or the tick downward. I think what we hear from the broker side of the business is that the whole of 2023 will be a tough year. And I think we see that to be true. On the carrier side of the business, we interact with a lot of carriers that do operate in the spot market. And I think there's optimism that spot market rates will start to tick up at some point during the second half of the year, not to get back to, 21 or 22 levels, but, to at least stop the downward slide that we've seen for the past few months.
One thing that I've found throughout the years is the truckers that have been in this industry for many, many years do have optimism. It's what keeps them going during the down cycles, and that's what they sort of lean into. But what's also interesting is on the up cycle, they know if they've had a number of years in it, they know that that's not going to last inevitably. So the market is a pendulum and it is swinging. And unfortunately, it's we're on the downside of that for a lot of the carriers in the industry. What is the advice today that your team is giving these carriers in terms of how do they really survive, or more importantly, how do they thrive over the next couple of months and prepare themselves for that upcycle that may come?
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to spend some time with a few of our customers, actually riding alongside them in the passenger seat, which gives me honestly like literally a front row view as to how our customers think. And I picked up a couple of things. So just 2 weeks ago, I was in a cab with a top driver for Mercer, and she was telling me that one of the things that she's done during the down cycle to remain profitable is she has changed how she does from trip planning, which is something that we see our carrier customers using our platform to do as well. So she really likes a long haul. Like she goes from Greenville, North Carolina to Ontario, California. And instead of finding one load that will take her the whole way, she's found that she's more profitable. She can earn more if she now connects shorter hauls, especially shorter hauls that might have multiple stops along the way. So that was one of the insights from her that we see also then, I think, corroborated in usage data from our own customers. There's also then vigilance about rates in particular is, I think, one thing that our customers can do or just any trucker can do in order to maintain their profitability. So I had the chance to ride with another one of our power users who was telling me how he thinks about profitability is every single load he takes, he makes sure that he's not just covering fuel and tolls and other expenses, but that there's always a portion of that rate per mile that pays him as well. So he said he's been doing this, for 30 years. And he said one of the things that newer owner-operators forget to do is pay themselves. And I thought it was really insightful. He said, if I'm going to be an owner-operator, I need to make sure that I can be as profitable as I can be. Otherwise, I should just go work for a larger trucking company. And it has helped him be as well, I think, really successful.
Yeah, that good business sense, just street smarts. Some of it, some drivers have it when they enter the industry, others earn it. But one of the things that trucking's notorious for is the turnover of new entrants coming in and coming out. I'm curious, if you look at the data that you guys have in terms of participants in your marketplace, specifically on the carrier side, how many of those new entrants that joined in 2021 and 22 sort of take advantage of the market have turned out? Are we seeing a greater predominance of those revocations of those new carriers? Or is it really across the board and really hard to identify where that's taking place?
Oh, we have done quite a bit of analysis on this. And I think it was a little surprising to me that it's across the board. It is not specific to the new carriers. I actually entered the analysis thinking almost with the confirmation bias, right, that it was going to be new carriers and across the board, regardless of tenure. So even if you might have been, if your authority's been active for 10 years or more, you still see a higher percentage of those carriers deciding to exit the market. Now, here's the thing that we keep in mind is just because it looks like an exit of the market, it's not actually an exit necessarily. some of them may be going to drive for a company like Mercer, as an example. Some may park their rigs for 4 months or until rates improve, right? And dip into construction as we see right across the industry. So I think what's unique about transportation, about OO carriers, is that it's more like a revolving door. It's like, we'll see you soon, is more the takeaway, I think, from the data.
Yeah, and the capacity doesn't necessarily leave the market. It's interesting when you look at particularly the larger public truckload carriers talk a lot about, a lot of the small guys can go out of business, but they don't talk a lot about the recycling of capacity, like you mentioned, where they may join a larger carrier, or those trucks, that driver may leave the industry, but those trucks still remain, and some new carriers, you mentioned, new entrants pick it up. So it's hard to know, but we've seen so much growth over the past couple of years. It's really hard to know how long the downturn or the oversupply of capacity will be. It's going to be something really interesting to watch. You guys have a front row seat because you really serve the market that is most impacted by this, by the current market conditions. I am curious, when you looked at those revocations or you look at some of your own data, do you see a difference between scale? Does scale help companies sort of weather the storm? Or is it really, in terms of what you're seeing in terms of the carriers that are struggling, is it really just all over the board where everybody's sort of, some of them got lucky, some of them were smart and better prepared, and some of them just got on the wrong side of the economy?
Yeah, it's across the board, right? So, just by nature of how the market is designed, the fact that 85% of trucking companies are single truck owner-operator run businesses, you obviously see a preponderance of those businesses changing their status in some way, shape, or form. But at the same time, anecdotally, and talking to our customers, those that have had, a couple of drivers that work for them, so they start to move out of the, single truck and into the small fleet category. Even there, I think volatility is present. I think particularly as drivers try to decide, do I want to stay in transportation or not? I think there seems to be more volatility happening with, can we retain the drivers that are working for us? I think that's what we've heard from some of the small fleets.
Yeah, it is a crazy market. So you did your ride-alongs. Is this a new experience for you? Is this the first time you've done it?
It was. So I think I did my first one in the fall. Oh yeah, last summer. We hauled 14,000 pounds of bread, which was very exciting.
The lightweight load. So,
totally. And
was it cubed out? Did the whole thing cube out on the 14,000 pounds?
It was. And actually, what's really funny is we didn't know what I would be hauling. And the team here kept teasing me. They were like, you got to take your steel-toed boots and you need your gloves. They're like, God forbid you get hurt. And so I definitely took some pictures of a loaf of bread falling on my foot, so that way they could giggle. But it's really great, ever since I stepped into the CEO slot, because I am not a natural born trucker. I am a trucker transplant to the transportation industry. I really want to get very close to our users and understand not just how they use our product, but just how they think about doing their jobs on a daily basis. The more I know about how they're processing information, even as they're driving, the better I can lead our teams in helping to create products that will be really valuable for them. So yeah, it's been really fun. I think maybe sometimes I earned some street cred doing it, but on the other hand, the last one I did, I showed up and she's like, your nails look really nice. Do you have some gloves to cover them? So I'm working on it, Craig.
A couple more trips and those nails will look a little different.
Not the same.
There'll be a meme of you, that whole Taylor Swift. I don't know if you've seen it, the whole Kogan, Taylor Swift. Once you started, and then after being in the cab, it is a challenging market. It is a difficult job. Obviously, drivers are the backbone of this industry and the economy, for that matter. What was the one thing you came in that, or perhaps you left with, that really surprised you about the job that you just didn't understand or have an appreciation for that you gained from that experience?
There are a few things. So, one, I think I gained a real appreciation for what it means to be on the open road. It's where drivers talk about this a lot, and they bring up this concept of freedom. And there's something about being in the cab of the truck where you're so much higher than other vehicles, and you have like this panoramic view of not just the road in front of you, but the whole terrain. There's something about that that invokes this different emotional response. I don't know. Like I guess I got a greater appreciation for why people are drawn to trucking. So there was that. And then the other thing that I've really come to appreciate is that for a small business owner, I think being a small business owner is demanding regardless of what industry you're in. But they're small business owners while on the road, and that adds a whole different level of complexity. So the driver, Jerry, who I was riding with a couple of weeks ago, this is great. She basically has an apartment in her cab. She has everything from a mobile printer to full-blown satellite television. She's like, anything I could do for my house, I could do from the cab of this truck. And that's really impressive. She's like, I don't want to pay fees at a Kinko's or have to, figure out where to find Wi-Fi. I run my business and I have to run it from here. And so I'm well equipped to do that, which I think that's really impressive. And again, for me, leading a company that builds technology that's meant to really enable the small trucker, that's very helpful for me to know what their setup is like, right, in the actual vehicle. So there's so many learnings, Craig, from these from the time I spend with truckers. I am really excited about, I think, how we'll take not just what I'm learning, but others then on the team are doing this as well, how we take it and embed it into our product.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally their mansion on the road. And it's, a lot of these Dooner on What the Truck occasionally will show the inside of a cab. And it's pretty interesting how drivers have retrofitted this very small space into something that looks pretty awesome. So I've seen everything from sort of a man cave with the whole sports theme. I've seen somebody had put almost a hot tub inside the back of the cab. Still have not figured out how that works. And then others have gotten into gaming, and they're gaming, and they've set this whole flight simulator up. So it's a really interesting sort of experience that a lot of folks just don't have an appreciation for, that you can do some really cool things with. So, Kendra, one thing I would be remiss to if I didn't, and I'm not going to let you off the hook just yet, but one of the conversations that's really recurring inside the trucking industry, and the load boards are getting a lot of pushback, Truckstop is a part of this, is related to this double brokering and fraud. And one of the recent frauds that's popped up is a lot of identity theft and fake carriers picking up loads and never actually delivering the product. So I'm wondering, how is Truckstop addressing the fraud that's taking place that does originate through load boards in many cases? How are you guys thinking about addressing that problem?
Yeah, what we've seen, like you're describing, is just, I think it's probably fair to call it historic levels of fraudulent activity just across the industry as a whole. Whether that shows up in load boards, whether that shows up in manual processes, other automated systems in the freight tech space, I think just across the board, there's this wave of fraudulent activity that wasn't as present. I won't say that it was non-existent. It just wasn't as present, and call it the 2021 and 2022 timeframe. When we talk to our broker customers, almost 90% of them say that they have experienced fraud in the past 3 to 6 months. And so it really has been on the rise. We ourselves have seen complaints about double brokering on our platforms more than double over the past, let's call it just over the past year or so. We've done quite a few things in order to respond to this. So we are always continuing to improve our service, whether that's setting up and making sure that multi-factor authentication is working for all of our customers. So that way they can protect and manage their information, right? A lot of carrier impersonation happens through content changes. So someone getting access to someone's credentials and then going in and changing email addresses, phone numbers, physical addresses, et cetera. So that's one big area where we've really work with our customers to make sure that their information is as safe as it can be. We take it so seriously, actually, the rise in fraudulent activity, that another thing that we're doing is partnering with the FBI and law enforcement agencies from a variety of states. So as they see the rise in fraudulent activity, us partnering together to exchange information and actually try to hunt the bad guys down in fairness. So there's a whole task force that we've created on our truck stop, across our truck stop team in order to help to manage the fraud. So it's something that we're paying a lot of attention to, and continue to evolve the product and the software to be able to mitigate the fraud even before it happens.
Do you think you'll take a more active role in getting rid of some of those carriers and really sort of managing? Because that's one of the complaints that we hear often in the market, is that the load boards are not policing the activity and really addressing some of the bad actors. Do you think that that's a part of the goals that you guys have for the rest of the year, to be more aggressive?
It's always our goal to make sure that the users of our product are who they say they are. So, in fact, embedded into the Truckstop platform is a continuous vetting process. Carriers are vetted every time they log into our platform, and brokers are vetted very frequently. So, not every day, but on a monthly to quarterly basis. We're constantly looking at credit scores, FMC, SA, authority status, and we do that continuously for carriers. So that's always been present as part of our product and our offering. Like I said, we take it really seriously. And then the work that we've done to help carriers be really vigilant about how they protect their information. So to help them be even more secure when it comes to their credentials, their contact information that are prone for bad actors to find and then impersonate. So the partnerships I think that we've built with our customers, and then like I said, across law enforcement, will, we believe, certainly help to continue to keep our customers secure.
So, Kendra, this has been, you came in from an investment background. You worked at one of the large private equity firms that is invested in tech. What are you seeing right now? What are you hearing right now in terms of a lot of the companies that went out and raised capital? Truckstop is a really unique technology provider in this space, in the sense that it was originally bootstrapped. It is profitable and is still growing. This seems like an opportunity to look at to be very opportunistic. How are you guys thinking about potential M&A or just the landscape?
Yeah. So like you said, Truckstop, we are in a unique position. I always tell people Truckstop is just a gem of a company. We've been around for 28 years, and every single one of those years, we've grown the business and we've been profitable in doing it. And so actually, it means that we're always in an advantageous position. We are always thinking about what does it take to deliver the next phase of growth for our business. And I think I say this frequently. The good news for us is we have all kinds of options. So I think as we go forward, you would see growth from us both organically and inorganically over time, as you would expect from a company of our size. So we have the good fortune of being in the position to have a number of options ahead of us.
Yeah, it's an exciting story to watch out. Kendra, one last question, I'll let you go. Bold prediction, next 5 years, what would you sort of think that people are not looking at or thinking about that you think is going to play out in the next 5 years?
Yeah, one of the things I think about constantly is what consolidation will look like in this space. And I think about it from a number of different fronts. I think we already see some consolidation in the broker space, right, with large broker M&A taking place. So I think some of that will continue to happen. I think I'm not concerned, or nor would I predict that consolidation would diminish the broker space. I just think it's going to make for savvier companies that are playing there. I think there is a ton of freight tech. I really do. There's a lot of newer companies that came in as investment has flooded into the sector. And so I would fully expect that you start to see some consolidation taking place then across the freight tech in pursuit of being able to provide single panes of glass for our customers. I think about this a lot on the carrier side. Again, sitting next to carriers and cabs with their truck, they're using so many apps in order to run their business on a daily basis, somewhere between 4 and 10 apps, I think, on average. And I watch them do it. It is a lot of screen toggling that's taking place. And so I just think it's hard for me, especially with a tech and investment background. It's hard for me not to see how that doesn't consolidate over the next 5 years. So that way users have a better experience.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of proliferation. I almost wonder, to your point, if we'll see an large incumbent buy some of the newer age digital sort of natives who may have taken on a lot of capital very early on, but their business models have changed, the capital markets have changed. So it's certainly going to be interesting to watch. And then also just the technology providers, you can see consolidation. To your point, one of the things happened in a zero interest rate environment is that technology sort of popped up for the sake of technology and not necessarily the best thing for the client. So we'll see where all that goes. It's going to be an interesting time to watch. Kind of really enjoyed the time with you. How can folks reach out to you or your team?
Yeah, you can always find us at truckstop.com. If you feel so compelled, you can email me directly. I'm Kendra Tucker at truckstop.com.
Well, Kendra, really appreciate it. And hope we'll see you in Cleveland, Ohio at the Future Supply Chain. If you haven't got tickets, get them today. They are available on the website. We've got a great lineup. We're doing it in Cleveland, Ohio, the home of rock and roll. And we actually have our party at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So it's going to be a really killer time. It's going to bring the thought leaders across the industry. We hope to see you there.